Welcome back once again to another edition of the WrestleCord News Break for April 27th, 2026. This is Ryan here bringing you some of the news from around the world of wrestling and MMA. Of course, we have tonight Monday Night Raw, just over a week removed from WrestleMania 42. We're going to have on the docket tonight for the Intercontinental Championship, our champion Penta, Elzera Miedo taking on Rusev. We're also going to have Becky Lynch, the newly crowned Women's Intercontinental Champion, returning to Raw. We're also going to have a Women's Tag Team bout in Bayley and Lyra Valkyria taking on Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. And that's just a little preview of what we're going to get tonight on Raw. But let's move over to a little more news. We're going to talk more about some of the departures that just happened from WWE earlier last week. So, into Alba Fyre being one of those people that was let go. She had just recently been working with Chelsea Green, and Piper Niven being one of the slight agents to Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green, of course, hurting her ankle. Piper Niven also out with an injury. And it seemed like they didn't want to hold on to Alba Fyre any longer. I really don't think that was a wise move on their part. But we had Piper Niven recently taking to social media, speaking about the newly departed Alba Fyre. She would say, "Thank you for your service, Slagent. A more than a wrestling soulmate, a hetero life partner, if you will, a true pioneer and soon to be remembered as one of the greatest to ever do it. Run wild, my demon pirates for life. At East Slagent." And that she actually posted that to X. Then we have Chelsea Green also posting on social media, speaking of Alba Fyre, saying, "I know you saw bits and pieces, but trust me, there's so much more to her. She's a fearless wrestler. I'm sad to not have her on my side, but this is just the beginning for my girl. Thank you for having my back. Slagent A. Love you." So, obviously, just some of the people upset by a lot of the recent firings by WWE, or at least contracts not getting renewed. We're not exactly sure who of all the people that got let go in the realm of about 24, whether their contracts were just not renewed, whether they were contracts were cut short. One of those other people being Kairi Sane, who has already returned to Japan. There's been a lot of fan outcry. She was just recently working a angle with Asuka, so it seemed very weird they would cut her at this time. It seemed very short-sighted to at least not let this storyline play through to its conclusion. But nonetheless, Kairi Sane heading back to Japan. We very much could see her in a Stardom ring, a Marigold ring. She recently returned to New Japan a few years ago to battle for the inaugural IWGP Women's Championship. She was not successful in that pursuit. And then again, moving on to some more people that have let go by WWE. You have Aleister Black that I spoke about early about the middle of last week in regards to a possibility of him returning to AEW. Now, Dave Meltzer just recently spoke about this on his podcast, saying it seems that most people in AEW do not think it's likely that he is going to head back to the brand. There were definitely reports during his time there that he was unwilling to take pinfalls. He was unwilling to work in certain storylines, so just really not being a team player. Now, how much of that is true, I can't tell you. Of course, his wife, his partner, Zelina Vega, being another one of those that was released. I mentioned in an earlier news break how she was very upset at Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful for breaking the news before she had a chance to, which again I spoke out against. I don't quite understand her stance here. It seems a bit absurd. It seems like she is frustrated and upset, and she's clearly annoyed, but instead of putting all that frustration at the people who are likely the culprits to cause her this annoyance, being WWE/TKO, she is taking out on Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. It seems very bizarre. I guess as a reporter, he's supposed to wait around for her to break the news first. And I don't know how he was supposed to know that she was going to break the news. I mean, there's plenty of people who have been let go that have not spoken about this, including one we just mentioned, Inkari Sane, or her husband, Aleister Black. So I don't really understand her gripe there. It seems super absurd. It seems like instead of being upset at WWE because she's worried that it might hinder her ability to work there in the future, she's taking her frustrations out on a reporter. It also interesting that she did not blame WWE. She blamed TKO, said that the call for her to be cut didn't come from Triple H but came from higher above. I don't know what the truth of that is, and honestly, I'm very suspicious of that. And what that even means or why that matters, I'm not really sure. But nonetheless, let's talk about a bit of a format change for WWE going forward in regards to Friday Night SmackDown. It looks like that is now being moved back from a 3-hour show that it just started doing in the beginning of January. And this was reported recently by Body Slam Plus. It is going to now be moved back to 2 hours, which I certainly think is a very smart way to do that. I think a wrestling show, 2 hours is already a lot of time to fill, especially when you have other wrestling shows that you're doing. WWE has evolved. They have main event. They obviously have their pay-per-views, their Saturday night main events. They have Raw. Now, I understand Raw and SmackDown are different brands, so you're not always seeing the same people. So it's not necessarily that everybody from SmackDown is being involved in other shows, but definitely some of that talent is. And I think, honestly, I think the best wrestling amount of time is about 90 minutes. Now, you never see that. I think that's probably the optimal amount of time to watch a wrestling show, but it's usually going to be an hour, 2 hours, or 3. Of course, Raw recently on Netflix has been running at approximately 2.5 hours, which I also think is quite bloated. I know a lot of fans like myself who remember the Attitude Era, remember the 3-hour Nitros, which I didn't mind so much as there was a lot of this happened before there was Thunder. And also, this was a time where there was not so much professional wrestling in general that fans could consume, even outside of the major products. You didn't really have a chance as a casual fan to see smaller promotions like you can now with streaming platforms, YouTube, Triller TV, and all these other avenues, Fight TV, that you can watch all this content and really get your fill of wrestling. That it almost seems an overabundance at time. You can sort of have decision fatigue in trying to watch things like NWA, MLW, Stardom, New Japan, WWE, AEW, and so much more. So it's and already back then I know people were kind of getting overworked with the 3-hour Nitros, and so I think it's really smart for SmackDown to pull back on that and go back to a 2-hour format. Also, really quick, I just want to talk about a little bit of really weird MMA news. Dana White, certainly a guy with a strong opinion, one that I usually don't like. Was at the White Correspondents dinner recently that was involved in a shooting. A rogue individual came in. He actually shot a police officer who was, fortunately for him, wearing a bulletproof vest and seems to be doing well. But Dana White, speaking about this, would actually say, and I quote, "It was fucking awesome." He talks about how he heard shots fired, people were ducking under tables. He didn't do that. He thought it was fucking awesome. I can't understand the disconnect here. That you would say something about a situation like this where a man was shot, people's lives were in danger, and apparently Dana White, being such a great human being that he is, thought this was fucking awesome. But I guess that's what you would expect from a guy who would slap his wife, not even just in private, but in public. So it shows you how much he cares about whether people see him abuse other people. So, fun guy there. And that is going to bring us to the end of our WrestleCord news break today for April 27, 2026. Please check out tonight. We are going to, I know I said this before, but tonight we are going to be releasing our next episode of the WrestleCord podcast, where we are going to discuss Collision from this past Saturday and also Stardom from yesterday, which was an awesome show. Lots of big news coming out of that. And so check me, Ryan, and cordial out tonight for that next episode of the WrestleCord podcast. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and you can always catch all of our content here on youtube.com/WrestleCord, but you can also check out our podcast on Spotify, RSS.com, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere you get your podcast fix. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow.